Yes, welcome. We are so excited you're here. It's been a long time coming. Next slide, Hope. So my name is Leslie Moylan, and I'm the director of the Missouri Environmental Education Association. And I will be hosting today's meeting along with Hope Gribble, who you already were talking with a little bit. She's the Green Schools Manager for Missouri Gateway Green Building Council. And then Dana Ripper is also here representing Conservation Federation of Missouri today. Next slide, please. All right, so we've got some big goals today, which you're a little bit aware of, but we want to definitely bring you up to speed on all the things that have been happening for Show Me Green Schools as of late. A lot's happened in the last year. We are really excited to spend some time kind of taking a deep dive into what the Conservation Federation of Missouri is and what they do, and learn about their resolutions process, because we'd like to get involved with that in their advocacy work. So we've been working on some draft resolutions that we are hoping will be adopted by CFM. And you're gonna work with us today to make some significant steps towards strengthening those today. And also, hopefully, you will have some ideas to help us deepen our relationships with some of the folks that are on our recipient list for these resolutions, should they be adopted. Next slide. Okay, so y'all know this is being recorded, but a few other guidelines just to keep in mind as we go through our day. No right or wrong ideas or suggestions. We value everyone's points of view, and we're going to take them all into consideration. You don't have to agree with someone's point of view, but please listen respectfully and openly as people share their views. And just an FYI, sometimes we'll be using chat for feedback, but other times we'll invite you to unmute and speak out loud. Sometimes it gets a little bit messy on a large Zoom meeting, but we really do want to hear some of your voices for sure. You can definitely use the raise your hand function. It should be in your toolbar. It's a separate button right down on your toolbar that says raise hand. So if popping in isn't your style, just feel free to use that. And if you're not comfortable speaking on Zoom, I know not all of us are, definitely feel free to use the chat. And then finally, just a common guideline we use a lot is step up, step back. That's just, some of us speak a lot and some of us don't speak so much. So whatever your default is, I challenge you to maybe, think about being strengthening that other side of yourself. So if you tend to speak a lot out loud, maybe do a little of that and use the chat more. And if you tend to be quiet in meetings, I really challenge you that your voice is important. So whether it's the chat or, actually taking yourself off mute, we invite you to please share your perspectives. They're important.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Leslie. And again, we're just so excited to be here with each of you. Thanks for taking the time to be here this morning. So in this portion of the agenda, I'm going to share just a few updates on the Show Me Green Schools program suite, which we're thrilled to share with you today. And I really like to begin this conversation by talking about what is meant by the term green schools, because green schools appears in the name of each of the programs that we're going to be talking about today. So I think it's really helpful to think about, how do we define sustainability in a school setting? These three pillars are becoming a common definition of green schools. I know many of you have seen these before, but it's really wonderful to have this common definition that's being used really nationally and globally at this point when we're talking about this term. So green schools strive to reduce environmental impacts and costs, improve health and wellness of students and staff, and increase sustainability literacy. And there are many different elements that fall under each of these three pillars. Most likely the work of your organization touches upon one or more of these items. And really there's a lot of interconnectedness among the pillars and the elements that fall under them as well. When researching how like the conditions necessary to support a school's journey towards long-term whole school sustainability, researchers at the Colorado State University found that it's essential to integrate practices aligned with those three pillars holistically throughout a school's campus, curriculum, and culture. This is something that is also really at the heart of our programming. And it underscores, I feel, really the value of the partnership between the Missouri Green Building Council and the Missouri Environmental Education Association in developing and managing the programs, as well as the importance of each of you, each of the cultivating this network of partners who really bring unique contributions and connections across each of these areas. For more than a decade now, the Green Building Council and Environmental Ed Association have been supporting schools in advancing sustainability in a variety of ways. And this school year, we are really excited to bring 3 successful programs together under one umbrella that is called Show Me Green Schools. Show Me Green Schools is a suite of 3 programs that provide structure, resources, and recognition to support every Missouri pre-K through 12 school in becoming a green school, no matter what their starting place. By offering this suite of programs, we're able to meet schools where they're at to help them plug into the programs that are really the best fit for them and support them along their unique journey towards whole school sustainability, while also elevating, all of the amazing work that they're doing along the way. So I'm going to share a few key characteristics about each of these programs now. Launched in 2013, the Green Schools Quest is an annual challenge that is issued to pre-K through 12 schools throughout our region to implement student-driven sustainability projects over the course of 6 months with the help of a community volunteer who serves as their green mentor. Schools document their impact during the project and submit their project's process and impact at the conclusion for judging by an impartial panel, and cash awards and trophies are then presented to winning teams in elementary, middle, and high school divisions. Registration is currently open. We have you can see here, the deadline for mentors to register is August 31st. For schools is September 15th. And then all of the schools and mentors work together October and March in advancing a project of their choosing. In April, winners are announced at the annual Green Schools event, and in May, members of our leadership go to those schools to present their awards. Green Schools Quest projects really run the gamut from outdoor learning spaces, native plants, food gardens, stormwater management, to recycling and waste minimization, to improved indoor environmental quality, water and energy conservation, to the creation of green teams and development of sustainability plans, and so much more. It's so broad, it's so open. Schools can work on whatever type of project they want, and we see just a really wide variety, which is very exciting. We're currently recruiting both schools and mentors. So this is something we'd love your help with, partners. We invite each of you to consider becoming a mentor or encouraging someone else within your organization to mentor this school year. And we also ask that you please share this opportunity out with your contacts, whether that would be for mentor recruitment or school recruitment. And we'll be sending, info about that can help with promotion out to you after this call so that you have that handy. We are hosting 2 information sessions that are coming up. Both of these sessions will contain the exact same content. There are just 2 date options to work better with people's schedules. But there'll be opportunities to hear like a deeper dive on this program. And we have 2 mentors and 1 school representative who will join for each of these and just share about their personal experience. So great opportunity to ask questions. If this is something that you think you'd be interested in, but you're not sure, please join us on either of these dates. And again, we'll share information about those out. So the next program is Missouri Green Schools. Missouri Green Schools began its pilot phase in 2020 as a statewide support and recognition program. And we are going to be fully launching the program this school year, which is also incredibly exciting. So schools may enroll in Missouri Green Schools at any time during the school year. The program is intended to be primarily a self-guided journey using tools that we provide. Those schools with 60% or more students qualifying for free or reduced price lunch are provided with additional, one-on-one support to set goals and navigate the program. The program structure supports growth through a continuous loop of tracking and advancing sustainability practices, ultimately cultivating that culture of sustainability at the school. Because of its holistic nature, it is ideally driven by a diverse group of stakeholders within a school. So whereas the Green Schools Quest is student-driven, Missouri Green Schools is really seeking to engage a wide range of representatives and roles from throughout the school. So, faculty and students, of course, but also administration, facilities, PE teachers, nutrition staff, counseling. So very holistic in nature. Recognition is offered annually for this program. And we have a variety of levels from emerging to advanced. And it's, we really love that this range celebrates schools taking their first steps all the way through schools who are working comprehensively across all three of the pillars. The criteria for each of these levels is based on best practices that are intentionally scaffolded to help a school journey towards whole school sustainability. As part of our full rollout this school year, we are introducing a 5th level that is going to be called SEED. Pardon me. So Missouri Green Schools enrollees are provided with access to an online dashboard called START to help guide and track their ongoing achievements across roughly 50 metrics. So this is one of those tools a school would use in their self-guided journey. The metrics are also really helpful for generating ideas, and there are built-in discussion forums and how-to guides that are aligned with each of the metrics. So you can see here, we've got outreach campaigns and indoor air quality are two of the metrics. And we really see the partner network as having this being a great opportunity for interaction with the partner network through the discussion forum or helping to draft and write how-to guides that align with what your organization's work is. And lastly, we partner with the State Education Department to manage the U.S. Department of Education's Green Ribbon Schools recognition within the state of Missouri. So this is a one-time national scale recognition of demonstrated excellence across all three of those pillars. Each state is limited to 5 nominations per year. So very high level, we're really excited to be able to recognize schools, at this national level. But we also see the place for Missouri Green Schools being opening the ability for us to recognize a much broader set and increased quantity of schools. So ultimately, all three of these programs are really grounded in the same foundation and all recognize schools for their accomplishments, but they do approach things a little bit differently, and they do really each have their own piece of the puzzle, and so we see a real need for each of these three. We have a new map that highlights school participation across all three programs. So we'll send a link to this out. Just to provide some context, last year alone, we supported 74 schools in at least one of these three programs. To date, nearly 200 schools have participated in the Green Schools Quest, many for multiple years. 27 schools are actively participating in Missouri Green Schools, which is more of that ongoing. And 18 schools and 2 school districts have been honored as Green Ribbon schools. Of note, 3 of the last 4 honorees of the Green Ribbon schools within the last 3 years are under-resourced schools. And their stories really help us to raise awareness of the green and healthy innovation that's taking place in under-resourced schools, and serve as an inspiration for others facing similar challenges, something that we feel is really important. As you can see, we currently have a high concentration of green schools in the St. Louis area, and we're actively working to expand participation across the state. This is something that we also really want to activate our partners in helping us to accomplish. We have so many schools, and we know that there is a lot of really great activity happening, and we want to be able to connect with those schools, celebrate the work they're doing, and then help them expand. So each of you are here today, as part of the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network, which was really established to help connect schools with resources across the state. While the network was first introduced as the Missouri Green Schools Partner Network, some of you have been engaged since that period of time. We're really hoping that you can now see the reasoning and value in expanding this network to be supportive of all 3 of the programs that fall under the Show Me Green Schools umbrella, which share the same mission. If you haven't yet, please be sure to check out our new website at showmegreenschools.org, where you can find info on all 3 of the programs, as well as resources such as the new searchable partner resource directory, which allows schools to easily locate resources offered by your organizations to help them advance their healthy and green school goals. And if you visit the website and go under the resources page, you'll find links to a list of our current partners, a link to that resource database, and if you know of other organizations who are not yet on that list, who you feel would be a good fit, we would really encourage you to share this opportunity with them, because we are really seeking to grow this partnership and network. Leslie Moylan, who opened up the conversation today, is going to be the point person for the partner network development. So if you have questions, if you want to set up a time, to have a one-on-one discussion, if you can think of other organizations to engage, please reach out to Leslie and, share your thoughts with her and start that conversation. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And it's so great to see all of your faces. Yeah, I just wanted to open up the floor to just capture if we don't have too long here, but if there are 1 or 2 comments or questions before we move on to the next leg of our agenda, you're invited to speak up or type into the chat. Oh, good. Bonnie says she's finding everyone on the website directory, which is great. Jump in there, see what you can find. All right, well, I'm not seeing any questions or hearing any, but we'll have more time for questions throughout the day, and please do type into the chat. Actually, I saw that follow-up from you, Bonnie, and we'll be in touch about that. All right, well, now it is my pleasure to introduce Dana Ripper, who is the National Wildlife Federation representative for the Conservation Federation of Missouri, or CFM. In addition to working with CFM, Dana is co-founder and director of the Missouri River Bird Observatory. And this morning, Dana is going to share information about CFM and the resolution process. She also contributed to the planning of this event, as well as Jenny Wallace, Vice President of CFM. So we definitely want to give a big thank you to Jenny and Dana for their contributions. And I'm going to turn it over to you now, Dana.
Thank you very much, Hope. I would like to go through this and have some time for questions, because it's kind of a big topic. CFM is an old and sort of complex organization, but first I would really love to see if you all could put in the chat just whether or not you're familiar with the Conservation Federation of Missouri, and if you are, what does it do? I mean, just really briefly, because I'd like to kind of see what folks know if they do know about it. Thank you, Christine. Okay, not familiar. Anna's not familiar. Name only, says Portia. Yep, members of CFM. Yep, I did see some affiliates when folks put their organizations in the chat earlier. Familiar with fishing and hunting stuff, but that's it. Thank you, Ben. That's important. Rob Hunt, you are spoofing. Not familiar. Rob is a fellow resolutions committee member, and actually I was going to call you out, Rob, because if I am very comfortable if you would like to add any comments, because you're as actively involved in this process as I am. Okay, thanks everybody. I'm seeing mostly not familiar. Okay, so hopefully folks did at least skim over the resolutions that are coming from this group, from the Missouri Environmental Educators Association in Missouri Green Schools, authored by Leslie and others. But so you understand those resolutions and the process that they're going to go through, that's kind of why I'm here today. So I am going to share my desktop and hopefully there we go. Okay, pretty good, right? We good? Cool. Okay.
Perfect. It looks great. Thank you.
All right. So Conservation Federation of Missouri, also known as CFM, the logo that you see here is updated of just a few years ago, and it's quite abstract, but what it is supposed to mean is everything under the sun. So I think CFM is often thought of as a hunting and fishing organization, and we'll see that is really how it started, but it is much more diverse at this point, and we're always intentionally trying to include more conservation organizations and individuals at all times. So here is our mission: ensuring the conservation of Missouri's wildlife and natural resources and preserving the state's rich outdoor heritage through advocacy, education, and partnerships. And I'll give some brief examples of each of those things. So a background, folks, maybe the thing you might be most familiar with is the fact that we have a Missouri Department of Conservation that is separate from the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. It is not like that in every state. And that both entities have a small sales tax that is devoted to their function. So with the Missouri Department of Conservation, that is 1/8 of a penny sales tax. And that's something that I think folks are like fairly familiar with, and it's very, very unique amongst states. So how did that all kind of come to be? And why is Missouri, which it is, a model for wildlife conservation across the country? And basically this is why. So back in the mid 1930s, we had very, very, very few deer and turkey left in the entire state of Missouri. Sportsmen, and it was in fact, men at that point in time from throughout Missouri came together and they formed the precursor of CFM. And they organized this was a organization of community members and Missourians for the purpose of taking politics out of conservation. And so having wildlife management policies that were based on science. And so you might have seen this before. This is the campaign banner from that time. And essentially they utilized our state's initiative petition process to result in the creation of the Missouri Conservation Commission, which is a 4-person non-political body that oversees our Missouri Department of Conservation. So that was CFM as an organization. That's its first action, was this development of this non-political system. Later in the 70s, CFM spearheaded that conservation sales tax that we have, 1/8 of a penny. And I will note that both of these are enshrined in our state constitution, which is really, really important. In fact, there was recently a court case, and Missouri courts ruled that because these things are constitutional amendments, they cannot be changed. So if the legislature wants to take away authority from the Conservation Commission and make it political, or take funding from that sales tax, they cannot do it because it's in our Constitution. So a little bit later, CFM and other partners worked on another initiative petition and instituted the Parks, Soils, and Water sales tax. This needs to be renewed by the voters every 10 years. And this is a tenth of a penny, and this funds our state parks and our soil and water conservation districts. So it's really kind of an interesting partnership between the soil and water conservation districts, which are very agriculture oriented, and our state parks, which are, of course, recreation oriented. And in 2016, even in the sort of climate of that year, this was passed in every county in Missouri, and I think it was passed by like 81% or something. So it's something that, you know, Missouri citizens in general are very much behind. Really quickly about the governance, just so you know, it is related to this resolutions process that we're going to talk about. So CFM has a fairly large board of directors. It has, I think it's 44 of us, and it's a very, very involved board. So as people are members or serve on committees or serve on the board of directors of CFM, it's a very committed and very devoted group of people. In addition to this board, it's an organization that does have paid staff, which is, of course, not always the case with every nonprofit organization, and you can kind of see that hierarchy here. Our executive director interfaces with the board, and then Tyler is his name, is over the rest of the staff. Quick note on National Wildlife Federation. I would guess folks are probably familiar with this organization, which is old, but actually not as old as CFM by a couple of years. But the same way that the Conservation Federation of Missouri has affiliates, which I'll talk about in a second, it in turn is an affiliate itself of the National Wildlife Federation. The National Wildlife Federation only, however, has one affiliate per state, and CFM is Missouri's affiliate. And basically what this does is give us a voice and give us the opportunity to work on larger levels, regional and national levels, as well as at the state level. Okay, so CFM itself, we have individual members. Anyone can be a member. I think it's $30 or $35 a year for a basic membership, very inexpensive. And then we also, which is a little bit more unique, of course, is we have these affiliate organization members. You do have to apply to be an affiliate organization and be approved by a vote. We might have more than 105. It might be 106 or 107 right now. But between all of our affiliate organizations, and I'll give you, some examples of those and their focal areas, we have a combined membership of about 65,000. So, for example, I saw Forest Relief here in this audience. I believe you're a CFM affiliate. My organization, the Missouri River Bird Observatory, is a CFM affiliate. Missouri Environmental Educators Association is an affiliate. So, and as are the Missouri chapter of Ducks Unlimited, for instance, the Sierra Club. So we have a lot of different affiliate organizations that make up this base and foundation, really, of CFM. So you can see here some of the topic areas, if you will, that affiliate organizations themselves are focused on. So environmental education is certainly one of those. So I think it's really very appropriate and good to be having this Green Schools conversation in this context of the Conservation Federation. So key functions, advocacy, education, and partnerships. What does that look like? give a couple examples here. So one of CFM's wonderful programs is the Conservation Leadership Corps, also known as CLC. And you can see here that it is a program for high school juniors through college students. And most of our CLC students are in wildlife or some related field, but some are not, and you don't have to be. We have business majors that with marketing focus. We have, all kinds of different sectors, if you will, represented by these students. But they, are their commonality, of course, is that they like the outdoors and conservation, and want to go through a leadership program in that context. One of the things that CFM provides to anyone really, but I think this is a really nice benefit for being either a member or an affiliate. You don't have to be to use this, but this is a nice contribution. So CFM tracks our state legislation very closely, and things that are wildlife related, conservation related, environmental quality related are assessed for a position, and that's largely where these resolutions come in, and they are put on the Legislative Action Center. You can look up, basically they do the work for you of following what's going on in Jefferson City. There's text about, if CFM is in support or opposed and why, so you can make your own decision, and it makes it really easy to contact your representative if you so choose. Okay, so resolutions. What these are, when they are voted in, if they are voted in and get through the process, is they become statements of CFM stances or positions on particular topics based on the best available information and science. And they express our support, opposition, etc. on a particular topic. So we're going to see a couple of examples of this. And importantly, as you all saw, this is an organization with a large board of directors, a really big membership base, both individuals and affiliates. So if an individual author or an organization gets a resolution through, you're kind of like turning this ship of state and making what you want to see into the policy stance of CFM. So when things come up in the Missouri legislature, or they come up with different partner organizations, or there are opportunities to do things like promote green schools in the ways that we'll look at, the resolution makes it so that the stance has already been established, and that there doesn't need to be a bunch of discussion. Should we support this? Should we not? That is what a resolution is for. And so every resolution goes through a careful process and ends up being voted on by all CFM members that have the chance to vote at the General Assembly at convention, which is typically in late February or early March. So we've had a lot of resolutions over the years. In my time with CFM, which is about 10 or 12 years, they're typically probably anywhere from 5 to 10 resolutions a year. My understanding is that some years previous to that, there would be a lot more. But we typically get through, and we'll look at resolutions by year here in a second, but about 5 to 10. So they're on the books for 5 years. And you can see here that any CFM member or affiliate can submit a resolution. They all go through a resource advisory committee, which we'll talk about briefly as well. But I wanted to actually go to the website. That worked, yeah, Hope and Leslie? Website coming, cool.
Yes.
Okay, so here are the resolutions passed in 2023, and you can see all these different tabs. You can look at resolutions through the years. And this is really a great way to get familiar with CFM as an organization as well, and the just various topics that are talked about and focused on, and that we all care about as affiliates and members. So you can see here, I think Ben earlier put in the chat that he was familiar with the hunting and fishing part of things. And I think that that is sort of like the reputation, if you will, of CFM. But you can see here that there's, this one has a hunting and trapping focus, but you can see we're looking at carbon emissions, we're looking at bird safe windows, forest restoration, applying community health indices, so basically scientific methodology to assess remnant prairie. So just a bunch of different topics. And I'm just going to click on this one right here, bird safe windows, because it's near and dear to my heart. But this is sort of the format of what a resolution looks like. And if you saw the two that are in the Google Drive regarding green schools, you're familiar with this format, but it's a very, very specific format. Always there are intended recipients, right? So if we're saying our opinion is that this thing should be done, someone needs to know about that. And so the development of intended recipients is a very important part of developing a resolution. And you can see basically the whereas statements or a background, what is happening, why this is important, what is leading up to us saying that we want a particular action on a topic. And so you can see we get down to the resolve section. And in this case, with the bird safe windows, Conservation Federation of Missouri urges college and university campuses to implement a bird safe window design policy. So let's see if I can return to my presentation. There we go. Okay. Okay, so process and timeline, and this is, of course, now directly pertinent to the resolutions at hand. And Hope and Leslie, I'm going to try and wrap up pretty quickly here so that folks can ask questions. But in the fall, authors and potential authors can come up with their topics. They can draft resolutions. Another option actually is the topics can be suggested to our conservation leadership course students for students to potentially research and write resolutions on behalf of a topic. And they can say no if they want to. Then late fall, early winter, the resource advisory committees, which is RACs, and I'll show you what those are in a second, begin considering topics. There's a lot of discussion, there is editing, there is it's a very, very democratic process, and it's a very involved process. Eventually, mid-January, the resolutions go to another committee, the resolutions committee, that assesses them somewhat for intent, but also to make sure that they're basically following guidelines and that it is an issue that CFM as an organization does have the capacity to get involved in. So, for example, CFM as an organization probably doesn't really need to be getting involved in like very hyper local issues. And that's the sort of thing that either the RAC, Resource Advisory Committee, or the Resolutions Committee can discuss and talk about. Then basically, I'm not going to get to, you have to kind of go through this process a couple of times before it's totally clear. But the Resolutions Committee sends it back to the Resource Advisory Committees. And throughout this whole process, any CFM member can attend a meeting, can provide input, and are indeed encouraged to do so. And then resolutions are debated at both the RAC meetings, but also during what we call General Assembly. So you can see that these are something that are taken extremely seriously, that are very well vetted before they get any further in the process, and eventually are hopefully voted in by the whole membership and become a policy stance with CFM. So this I'm sure will help. The resource advisory committees are as follows. I hope everybody can see all of those. So you can see that, you know, many different topic areas. Today we're going to be, the resolutions that we're talking about today are associated with the Education and Outdoor Recreation Committee and the Environment and Ecology Committee. And I think that's it. I'm happy to take questions. I think that worked to leave a few minutes for questions or comments.
Yeah, good job on the timing there. You got us back on time.
Let's see. I'm going to stop share. There we go. There we go.
Y'all feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question or put it in the chat. Give it about 30 more seconds. I don't
Yeah, yep.
fast.
So I have a fellow resolutions committee member here in Rob, and there is a resource advisory chair in Ethan here. So if you all want to add anything, please do so.
Okay. Oh, Rob, go for it.
Yeah. Well, no additions. I wanted to comment one thing. Leslie, you mentioned in the chat that CLC is looking for a broader geography. Most of our students, as I've been involved with CLC, come from the middle of the state, like Columbia area. They've had up and down years of getting students from Southwest, but for sure are missing students from any part of northern Missouri. Not a ton from St. Louis, not a ton from Kansas City. It's kind of pretty heavily focused on MU and Columbia public schools year to year, and that may change. I haven't seen the last group of candidates.
Great, thanks, Rob. There is a question from Katie. Can you recap the action steps we can take to support CFM?
Yeah, absolutely, Katie. Thanks for asking that. There are 3 different major ways that come to mind. One is simply become an individual member, which again, I believe is like $35. You'll get a quarterly magazine, all kinds of updates, have equal voting rights with everyone else at convention, which is one of my favorite things about the organization, is it's very democratically structured. So, you know, someone that is a quote unquote basic member can come to convention and has just as much power, if you will, as, you know, a board member during General Assembly, for example. So we are certainly looking to diversify our affiliate organization base. And I saw a lot of folks put their organizations in the chat, and only a couple of them are current affiliates. And from what I saw, all the other ones would definitely be good potential affiliates that I think your organization's missions and CFM would overlap really well. So that's another step that can be taken. And then, you know, we're always looking for people to really get involved in events and all the way up to leadership. So, I mean, as everyone here that works in the nonprofit world knows, it can be hard to find volunteers, and especially like board members, people that are willing to spend time leading and guiding an organization. So I guess basically in summary, as individuals or as organizations, there's like a number of different levels that you can get involved based on, you know, kind of your time capacity that you're willing to give, but all are welcome. So please look into it more.
So, yeah, again, thank you so much, Dana. And yes, that was Dana Ripper representing CFM, giving us that kind of primer on CFM and this whole resolutions process. And you all received those, you know, drafts of our resolution and our 2 resolutions that we're working on. And so I wanted to just give you a little bit of background before we go through them and start kind of really trying to improve them. we've got two resolutions. One is really about garnering generalized support for Show Me Green Schools. And there's some, in our Be It Resolved statement, which is the ask, describing what we want. We ask for a variety of types of support. And then the second resolution is really more specific in terms of asking for state agency reps to be allowed to participate and designated to participate in the planning and implementation of an interagency summit on green schools. Really, trying to get people out of their silos and increase our level of collaboration across the board for green schools. So those are the two resolutions that we're going to be working on. And so today, what we're asking for your feedback during the meeting, and then of course, after the meeting, I'm somebody who takes a while to process things sometimes. So I'm always, 3 days later, oh, okay, now I know what I want to say. So feel free to email me later if you have those aha moments later, because this is a long process, as you can see. And it's going to take a lot of us to get it to the finish line. So today, what we're looking for is, okay, for these resolutions, is it clear what our intent is? Is it clear what we're asking for? We'd love your help strengthening our supporting statements. One of the things that I know we need to strengthen, and I'm hoping this group can really help us do that, because we're all here for this kind of holistic green schools work. We need to make the case for folks that are attending the General Assembly that are voting on this at the end of the process, assuming we get there, that they understand how green schools is intimately connected with conservation, because that's the mission of CFM. So how does this connect with that mission? So putting that bug in your ear now, because that's a big piece of strengthening that we need to do. The recipient list. Do we need to add some folks? Did we miss some folks? Can you help us connect with people in these agencies? State government's huge. And it's not just writing the resolutions, it's also connecting with folks so that they already, they aren't blindsided by the resolution, and also so that they can help us strengthen it as well, and that they want to be involved in this, and it's not just something that lands on their desk and then is filed away. And then finally, we'd love your indication if you're interested in continuing working on this beyond this meeting. If you can't, that's okay. But if you have an interest in it, we want you to be a part of it. Oops. Okay. So we're going to dive into this first resolution, and we're going to read it out loud together. But before we do, I just want you all to see kind of the scope of the work of the state agencies that are going to receive this. The Department of Conservation, they do lots of different things that are connected to green schools, and they're already a great partner and supportive of what we're doing. Actually, all of these agencies do a lot that could support green schools, and some are actively involved in that, and some not so much. But MDC does a ton, especially the teacher education, the public education. The conservation areas are great, place-based education spots, and they're all over the state. Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, also known as DESE. We're an environmental ed association, and green schools are part of, they're just so intimately connected. So there's tons of stuff in here, from, you can all read. I'm not going to read this whole list for you, but Department of Natural Resources is also a big one. Huge agency. I am no expert in this at all. None of these agencies am I an expert in. I'm learning as I go. But there's just pretty much everything in the Department of Natural Resources could overlap with what we're doing in terms of green schools, especially the built environment and the campus improvements and the buildings, the way we operate them. Department of Health and Senior Services, public health, nutrition. They have a strong desire to improve access and to improve health for underserved populations. Partnerships are one of their main priorities right now. And then Department of Agriculture has a lot going on too. I think Dana mentioned the soil and water conservation districts. So there's just so much. going on in all of these state agencies, it's a great opportunity for us to alert them to the great things that we're trying to do here as a partner network. So also this will be going to CFM affiliates, asking for their generalized support, and then targeted different organizations across the state that are aligned with at least one pillar of the green school, a pillar of green schools. So I'm going to back out of here, and we are going to go through Resolution 1, and I'm going to read it out loud. I know some of you were able to read it, but we want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to hear and digest. So bear with me. So this one is for increased multi-stakeholder support for Show Me Green Schools. Whereas anthropogenic pollution, climate warming, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, overpopulation, and more pose significant threats to the existence and future of humanity. And whereas Earth's temperature has risen 2 degrees Fahrenheit in total since 1880, with 2022 being the 6th warmest year on record, and the 10 warmest years in the historical record have all occurred since 2010. And whereas wildlife populations have declined by an average of 69% in the past 50 years, and whereas the extraction of fossil fuels account for over 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions and nearly 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions, and whereas more than 99.9% of peer-reviewed scientific papers agree that climate change is caused by humans, and whereas we can look to our schools to play an important role in addressing these problems through their campuses, culture, and curriculum. And whereas the U.S. Department of Education, since 2011, has defined green schools as institutions that actively work to simultaneously reduce environmental impact and costs, improve health and wellness of students and staff, and increase sustainability literacy. And this definition has been adopted across the United States and internationally. Whereas green schools are healthy, high-performing places that yield better learning for students, more effective teachers, fiscal responsibility, and resource conservation while engendering hope, connection, and agency in young learners. And whereas Missouri fortunately has school programming that delivers these student, teacher, and environmental benefits through Show Me Green Schools, a suite of 3 programs providing many flexible avenues for cultivating, strengthening, and recognizing green schools practices, no matter a school's starting point. And whereas Show Me Green Schools served, insert where we're at the end of 2023, the number of schools served through our programs. And whereas Show Me Green Schools' mission is to support all Missouri schools in identifying and advancing practices throughout their campuses, educational programming, and school culture that reduce environmental impacts, improve health and wellness, and provide sustainability literacy. And whereas climate change and other environmental challenges disproportionately affect low-income and communities of color, and comprehensive green school support can help address this equity issue. Whereas Show Me Green Schools actively collaborates with regional and national groups that support and complement green schools, such as the North American Association for Environmental Education, Center for Green Schools, Green Schools Alliance, and the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Infrastructure and Sustainability. And whereas the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network members offer Missouri schools resources to support the advancement of green schools initiatives across one or more of the 3 pillars. Whereas the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network highlights current actions being employed by a wide range of stakeholders for schools and their students. Whereas expanding this network on a statewide basis will help Missouri to establish a unified effort to advance green schools practices, and will support the Show Me Green Schools aim to provide flexible support for schools no matter their starting point. And whereas representatives from Show Me Green Schools Partner Network organizations can serve as mentors in the Green Schools Quest, part of the Show Me Green Schools suite of programs, a project-based challenge that engages students in implementing a sustainability project of their choosing at their school. Whereas to date, 59 organizations are members of the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network, but there is significant room for expansion to ensure partners' service areas adequately cover schools throughout the entire state and provide services that encompass all 3 pillars of a green school. Whereas the state agencies receiving this resolution have missions that intersect with Green Schools imperatives, and many are already collaborating with Show Me Green Schools in some capacity or at some level. And whereas such state agencies have a wide range of opportunities to increase support for Show Me Green Schools, including but not limited to financial support, can help to reserve and establish budgets that aid in the funding of the Show Me Green Schools initiatives towards statewide whole school sustainability. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Conservation Federation of Missouri encourages state agencies, CFM affiliates, and other organizations aligned with Green Schools goals to join the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network, provide mentors for the Green Schools Quest, provide outreach opportunities to raise awareness of Show Me Green Schools, and or provide or collaborate to secure funding support for the ongoing development and management of the Show Me Green Schools programs. That's a mouthful. Thanks everybody for listening.
Yes, so there is a link in the chat that also, I mean, everybody has the link. You've received it multiple times, but there it is again. A couple of comments up so that you can have this, direct access to this document to refer to. And thank you, Leslie, for reading it aloud as well. Leslie, are you able to zoom in on your screen just a little bit more?
Sure.
While we're viewing it, thank you. So we have a few questions, and our first is just a simple poll. We know that during this conversation, we defined green schools, at the beginning of our session today, but if you had never heard of the term green schools, do you feel like that definition, like a green school, is defined clearly in this resolution? 1 through 5, 1 being very murky, 5 being very clear. Just help us to quickly gauge whether or not someone new to this would be able to understand what we're kind of talking about when we say green schools.
Awesome.
Great. If you indicated a 3 or below, we'd love to hear a little bit more about why you're feeling that. If you could just type a few comments into the chat for us to revisit later, that will be very helpful to us. So it looks like we have 3 people right now that indicated a 3. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, because we had some issues with that when we took it to the Resource Advisory Committee chairs that we're hoping to work with. It wasn't clear enough the first time around. So we live and breathe this every day. So it's very helpful. Looks like we've made some improvements. But yeah, we want 100% at 4 or 5 to be, we want whoever reads this to get it clear. So thank you. Okay. Did everybody get enough time to take the poll? I think so. Ending it. Looks like, yeah, 3 out of 25 found it neutral. And then the rest, 22 out of 25, found it pretty clear. So that's very helpful to know that we've made improvements there. Next question. Thank you, everyone. When you're looking at, can everybody see the be it resolved statement here?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll read it again. Be it resolved that CFM encourages state agencies, CFM affiliates, and other organizations aligned with Green Schools goals to join the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network, provide mentors for the Green Schools Quest, a program under the Show Me Green Schools umbrella, provide outreach opportunities to raise awareness of Show Me Green Schools, and or provide or collaborate to secure funding support for the ongoing development and management of the Show Me Green Schools programs. Question. This one, we invite you to unmute and speak out loud, and I'm going to take notes right here on this document. Insert your comments. You're welcome to put it in the chat, but What questions, if any, do you have about this be it resolved statement? Or suggestions for, ways to make it clearer, something we missed asking for?
I may have missed this. Is CFM currently a Green Schools Partner Network member?
Mm-mm.
So my only comment here, just for other people to weigh in on, is it more appropriate for the resolution this year to focus on CFM becoming a network member before they propose to other organizations to join?
Great
That's a
comment.
great question.
I'm curious if we were to engage CFM in becoming a partner network member prior to this going to committee and everything. In that case, do you feel like it would be, a good approach to be taking the route that we're suggesting right now for them to encourage their affiliates?
I'm not familiar enough with the way CFM becomes a member of other organizations. I don't know if it's done typically through the resolutions process where the whole membership gets an opportunity to vote up or down, or if it's done at like the staff person level, but I'm guessing it's done through resolution so that the membership has the opportunity to understand and vote on it.
Okay.
Gotcha. That's really, helpful.
Rob, now that you said that, I guess I don't really either know exactly how that's done. The only thing that I hesitate about is that we're always very careful to have resolutions not be prescriptive to us, typically, right? Like we don't write resolutions to ourselves to say CFM. I mean, it's very, very rare that a resolution will be like CFM is going to do this thing. So
yeah, that's
you know,
true. I always thought the intent of that was to protect the CFM staff from getting directed by the general membership.
yeah, I think that that's the primary reason for it.
I can
But
text
I guess,
Zach.
yeah, the only place that I've seen it done recently is with the Wetlands Summit, which is actually like pretty pertinent to the next resolution that we're going to talk about today. But that did say, we resolved that CFM and MDC and like other organizations are going to get together to have an interagency summit on wetlands in Missouri. And that's the only CFM directed resolution in my memory, which is, just a few years here. But I think Leslie and Hope, Rob's comment is a great one, and I think we should see if we want to let the resolution go the way it is, then yes, CFM may have a different process for joining green schools, and that's important.
Yeah. To be continued.
Mm-hmm.
Already a valuable meeting for us. Any other thoughts? Because I think Hope's going to ask the next question.
All right, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next question, but please do feel free to record any additional thoughts in the chat. So we've got a lot of broad statistics here when you look up into the whereas statements. And we'd love to bring these statistics closer to home. So for some of these whereas statements, for instance, when we look at 3, 4, and 5 pictured here, where we're talking about, wildlife populations declining, extraction of fossil fuels, climate change. There are also, some that are working specifically within the health realm, health impacts. We are curious if you, our partners, have sources or ideas about more Missouri specific information and data that can help strengthen this and just bring it home a little bit more. So we are going to actually give everyone 5 minutes of independent time here to look back over this resolution. Again, we'll pop the link in at the bottom so you have it really quickly accessible. And we are going to ask that as you read through these, if there are resolution or whereas statements, pardon me, that you feel like you might be able to have some additional information to share on, or resources or sources that you can help us to bring this closer to Missouri for the statistics, can you just insert a comment and let us know, hey, I'd love to assist with this particular one. And again, that assistance can really just be outside of this meeting, sending us an email with, hey, here are a few sources that I've found really helpful or that I'm aware of that can help strengthen this. So it is, let's go till 11:20 right now, and give you time to dip in there and insert those comments.
And feel free if you have questions about what we're asking, unmute and just ask.
Absolutely. And I will say an area that we are particularly interested in getting some additional help with would be within that human health arena. So if you know human health connections to these that you feel you could share info on, let us.
Thank you for the comments already made in the chat about the definition of green schools and how to make that clearer and maybe where to put it. All that feedback is really helpful. Thanks, Matt. So it's almost time to move on. I just want to reiterate to folks kind of, if you have information about any of these following subjects, we would love to hear, and feel free to put in the chat either your name and say, hey, get back to me, or put a link to a source. But yeah, we're really looking about Missouri specific information on flooding, high heat days, biodiversity loss, environmental justice concerns, lead, air quality, water quality. And then, yeah, like Hope had mentioned, that connection between human health and the environment. So next up, we would love to get feedback on, I'm going to scroll back up to our recipient list.
I have one quick comment, Leslie.
Great. Cool,
If
Rob.
you're interested. And looking for Dana to weigh in too. I don't have a ton of experience looking at these CFM resolutions. The ones I've seen tend to focus on, so like what we've got here is like a list of all these things happening in the world that almost sets it up to say like green schools is the solution to all these problems, which I think it can be, educating younger people and getting them to like turn the tide in the future. However, it may benefit the group to be a little bit more focused than what exactly they pick out statistic wise for setting up because you're kind of like building an argument like these things, therefore the solution is this. And so I'd want to be careful about that to make it, I think Missouri specific is interesting. I would even make it more narrow than that potentially. And I mean, I think you could safely start with line number 7, even, of just like, here's the established, like this program is established, Missouri participates and supports it. It's got these benefits, because this audience does not necessarily need to be convinced that there's benefit in green education or, you know, conservation education or sustainability in schools by kind of laying out all this groundwork.
Okay, so and focus more on the benefits and less on the problems. I don't know who's.
What do you think, Dana? I just feel like when I've seen these before, if it's like if there's a resolution specific to restoring habitat for a specific species or something, they'll reference like this much decline in bird species over the last 10 years or something like that. Like it's really directly related to what they're proposing. And so I don't want to see the resolution diluted with just like the world of environmental issues. That's just my opinion, though. I wonder what Ethan or Dana think.
Yeah, I was actually, it's funny, right before you jumped in, I was gonna say I want to hear from Ethan and Rob. And Ben also made a comment in the chat about folks may tune out right away if the first thing mentioned is climate change. In this audience, not necessarily would they tune out just because of that, but I think Ethan maybe earlier, and we've talked about this before, and you just specifically asked for Missouri specific stats on some of these things. So overall, I think that if the leading information regarding the issues, it could be condensed, as I think Rob is suggesting pretty strongly, but also if it was more Missouri specific, I think it would be a stronger argument to like how green schools can actually be a major part of the solution in our state. And that was in the chat also. So
Yeah.
Ethan has his hand raised, and I saw that Billy had his hand raised earlier also.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, let's go to Billy.
Yeah, I was just wondering when it came to Missouri specific stats, one thing, especially when we talk about green schools here with forest relief and trees, we talk a lot about early childhood asthma. So I didn't know if that was something we wanted to put in there, especially when it is related to, greening our schools and children and St. Louis or Missouri specific stats.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Ethan?
I really like Billy's comments there. I'll just take a step back and just more generalized, and for clarity, when you're considering audience, it is wise to consider the immediate audience there within CFM, whether it's the committee or whether it's the general RSC committee or it's the group of people that'll be attending and voting at convention. But it's also really supposed to go someplace after it gets passed. And we need to focus on those intended recipients, and the messaging is clear to them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing during this conversation is, we need to make it clear why CFM members want to adopt this, but then, think about after that. Make sure that folks read through it and actually consider what's being said. Awesome. Thanks, y'all. So speaking about our intended recipients, if there is anyone that you think we are missing, please let us know. And we'll be in touch with you about that, I'm sure, through some partner network communications. But one thing that we could definitely use help with is if you are working in an agency and you could help us get connected with more folks in your agency, or if you have connections to folks in some of these agencies. I mean, these are huge entities. We are just tiny players with little experience in this. Okay, no experience in this realm yet. We are jumping off the cliff and excited to do it, but we could really use your help in being, strategic in developing relationships. Like we mentioned at the beginning, when we're at the General Assembly this winter, there will be agency folks there. And we've got, I've already been talking with MDC. They're going to be making sure that, we kind of push in there and have conversations ahead of time with some MDC folks, but these other agencies, it would be really helpful as well. So if you have an agency that you might be able to help us connect more deeply with, put your name and that agency in the chat. That would be awesome.
Leslie, can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Piggybacking off of that. Once a resolution passes and, it has the approval of CFM and becomes part of CFM's policy and stance, while there is in fact a staff of CFM, they are very busy. They are overly busy as it is. So I would caution people, whether it's, this resolution, the next one we're talking about, or just general involvement with the organization. It's really important that folks that are involved are willing to do the follow-up work themselves, because I think one of the benefits to taking these resolutions before CFM, in addition to them becoming policy stances of the organization, is that you are exposing literally hundreds of people that are CFM members at convention and throughout the process that don't know about this. So that's potential for recruitment and so like the partner network and for people to do stuff. And so as Leslie just said about, working with the intended recipients closely, because even if these both pass with flying colors, that doesn't mean that someone other than us all here today are going to do the stuff. So I think it's important for people to plan to be involved in the actual implementation of these things that we're talking about.
Thanks, Dana. All right.
Okay, I think we're going to jump into resolution number 2 now, and that has just been shared in the chat. And we are going to do a similar process here, where I'm going to go ahead and read out loud.
Hope, are you going
But
to
first,
recipients?
yep.
Okay,
So
sorry.
first, we just want to mention that we have the same recipients, the state agencies listed that you saw in the first resolution, but we've expanded this a little bit further to also include the U.S. Green Building Council's Center for Green Schools, the North American Association of Environmental Education, and the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Infrastructure and Sustainability, which is where that Green Ribbon school program comes out of. So these are 3 national level organizations that we are already working closely with, and we feel like they could really help bring some additional perspective into these efforts. Okay, so
Can everybody see this okay?
what? I'm sorry.
Can everybody see this okay? This
It looks-
resolution?
Yeah, looks good to me. I've
Good.
seen a thumbs up.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Jalen.
All right, so this resolution is centered on an interagency summit with Show Me Green Schools partners and agencies, surrounding a green schools. The name may change. We have here one potential name, but thank you. Thanks, Leslie.
We talked about it.
We meant to update that.
Anyway, there you
Okay.
go.
All right. So whereas anthropogenic pollution, climate warming, deforestation, loss of biodiversity, overpopulation, and more pose significant threats to the existence and future of humanity. And whereas Missouri is experiencing a crisis level teacher shortage, and whereas our youth are experiencing unprecedented levels of mental health crises, including eco-anxiety, and whereas intended recipients are all addressing the significant threats noted above, but are working in silos without extensive knowledge of similar and complementary work occurring within other agencies and organizations. Whereas schools are centers of their community that can model solutions, inspire innovation in students, teachers, and the entire community, and serve as driving forces that bring us forward into a healthy, sustainable future. And whereas the intended recipients all provide programs or resources that could help schools address the significant threats noted above, and whereas the U.S. Department of Education since 2011 has defined green schools as institutions that actively work to simultaneously reduce environmental impact and costs, improve health and wellness of students and staff, and increase sustainability literacy. And this definition has since been adopted across the United States and internationally. And whereas green schools implement policies and practices throughout their campuses, educational programming, and school culture to holistically address sustainability. And whereas green schools reduce operating costs by monitoring and lowering natural resource use, such as energy, water, and material waste. And whereas asthma symptoms are improved in green buildings, green school buildings, by using better ventilation systems that increase fresh air intake, which helps to combat the 14 million school days that students miss from asthma cases. And whereas green schools help to decrease student and teacher exposure to toxins by using green cleaning, integrated pest management, and green purchasing. And whereas green schools have been found to improve student health, thinking, and overall performance through improved air, noise, water, lighting, and green space quality and access. Whereas green schools improve the quality of and access to outdoor learning spaces that promote hands-on learning, social emotional gains, increased physical activity, and students' sense of connection to their place. And whereas green schools have been shown to increase teacher job satisfaction and improve teacher retention. And whereas green schools provide environmental and nature-based education, which, as shown by a 2019 meta-analysis by Stanford University, helps develop individual pro-environmental behaviors, build community capacity, support conservation action projects, and ultimately contribute to addressing long-term environmental and conservation goals. And whereas convening the intended recipients will allow all parties to better leverage expertise and resources for schools to develop collective goals which align with agency and organizational goals and missions, while supporting a healthy and thriving future for Missouri's children. Be it resolved that the Conservation Federation of Missouri, assembled in Osage Beach, supports the convening of Show Me Green Schools to engage representatives of the recipients of this resolution to set goals for, develop, and carry out an interagency summit on green schools to be held within 2 years of the adoption of this resolution. Okay, that was a lot again. I think, Leslie, are you going to jump in with some initial questions here?
Sure, yeah. I think two questions. Well, first off, what questions, if any, do you have about the be it resolved statement? And also we can just take general feedback on, you know, any of the whereas statements if something jumped out to you, because I saw some faces that looked like people were really doing some deep thinking. And feel free to unmute and share out loud. I will take your notes right here on the doc. And as always, chat is fine.
So essentially, we're trying to break out of these silos and get the agencies to come together. And we want to really engage individuals from those organizations in developing what this summit could be. And that's kind of a distilled version.
Mhm.
Yeah, the big ask is an interagency summit. Though it's expanded a little bit to not just attend an interagency summit, but to help develop and plan that summit so that everyone feels more ownership and representation. Patrick Arnold, it looks like you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I think the overall resolution does a great job of making the case for green schools, but perhaps could be stronger for why an interagency summit could be necessary. So maybe some anecdotes to maybe the kind of disconnected the greater sum in these discussions. So something like that to make it like, why is this necessary?
Patrick, you broke up a lot, so that's why I put your name in the comment, because I'm going to be reaching back out to you. So maybe jot down your thoughts so that you're not blindsided when I ask you to regurgitate them later.
Thanks so much for that suggestion and comment, Patrick. Okay, there's a question from Ben in the chat. You know, he's feeling a little bit confused. Is the ask that CFM help plan the summit, or that all listed Intendian recipients help organize the summit? I would say both. I mean, that CFM and representatives from the intended recipients all work together. Do you feel, Dana and Leslie, that that is accurate? Dana, I feel like you may have something to say. No.
Is that an ESP thing, Hope? Could you possibly go back up towards the beginning?
Maybe.
One of the whereases, I think it's there we go. Yep, number 4. To me, that's a really strong statement. Intended recipients are all addressing these threats, but working in silos without interacting with other agencies and organizations. I mean, with the caveat that, you know, I've seen this resolution a few times, so my brain might be filling in gaps that are more apparent to others. But I think that whereas statement is showing the reason that we're proposing that we get together and intersect.
I think that Patrick was maybe wanting it to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah, deeper and maybe just a little bit more specific. Yeah, just some more context, because yeah, maybe even that last comment from Dana, like, is that true? How is that true? And you know, what's kind of happening?
It's really interesting to me that this particular whereas statement is rising to the top here, because that's what we wanted to ask some more questions about. You know, how can we further unpack this particular one? So when Leslie was first introducing the 2 resolutions, she gave a little bit of information about kind of the scope of the intended recipients, some of the programs that they offer, like Discover Nature Schools by MDC, or DESE's Agriculture Education Strategic Plan, or you know, the Missouri State Parks SPORE program. So we are curious if you are aware of additional programs that you feel are already underway within any of these intended recipients scopes that you feel already intersect with green schools and would really benefit from, you know, being connecting better with some of the other organizations or agencies programs. So help us to build this piece out a little bit more if you're able to. You know, when you look back at those intended recipients again, are there programs that your organization is already engaged in, or that you're aware of that these agencies are running that connect already but are maybe siloed? And you can feel free to just share out verbally. We can capture those in the notes.
Like Farm to School, FFA. We all have our niche. Don't assume everybody knows what you know. I know that, you know, we're going to talk to our DHSS folks on the asthma. They do a ton of work with asthma, you know, like we are going to have to connect with them and really learn about that. But there's so much we don't know on our Show Me Green Schools team. What was that?
Katie, did you have a comment to add?
Well, I'm wondering if rewording the statement just a little bit to make it more of a, like, what's the positive outcome that we're looking for here? You know, like you say that we're working in silos, but maybe you want to say to prevent these organizations from working in silos. You know, we want to create a community of collaboration or something like that kind of wording in the whereas statement.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, great suggestion. As a whole, we know that it's really important to lead with, you know, optimism and success and positivity in these conversations around climate. And so it has felt a little bit interesting in drafting this, that it is kind of leading with a lot of negative elements. And we're trying to find the right balance between kind of what we know as best practices in climate change communication and kind of aligning with this standard procedure, standardized kind of format that we see in a lot of the resolutions. Just tossing that out there.
Yeah.
For any additional comments or I mean, this has been really helpful because I feel like that's coming up a lot in the comments.
All right, we are getting close to the end of our formal discussion here. So one thing we talked about at the very beginning was wanting to strengthen the connection between conservation and green schools. And I think that's been brought up a little bit in a variety of ways, but without the specifics. Like, I'd love for folks to weigh in now on, you know, how would you describe that connection between green schools and conservation as you define conservation? I mean, there's no right or wrong here. this would be something that's going to give us fodder for when we go back and do the next rewrite here. Very, very helpful if you could weigh in on that. And I'd love somebody who hasn't spoken up yet. I won't call on anybody because it's not nice on a Zoom with dozens of people. Oh, Billy, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, so can you re-ask the question so I make sure I stay on point?
Okay. How do you see the connection between conservation and green schools?
Yeah, so working with Forest Relief, a lot of our projects are urban forestry. And so meeting people where they are and changing minds that conservation work and nature are not separate from humanity and our urban populations. So seeing that connection that nature is a part of our everyday life and we need to bring it to our schools, to our streets, yeah, just everything in general. So I think that's one of my biggest things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice. Don't be surprised if you see something that's pretty darn close to that, because I was like, woo, I love that. Thank you.
I have something to say similar to Billy. I would just say the connection, I think, between green schools and conservation is like, you have to think of nature and the outdoors as, an extension of the classroom. Learning cannot just happen within the four walls of the school. Kids have to get out in nature, especially the ones who ordinarily wouldn't have that opportunity, maybe because of where they live or because of not being able to access it. So I think, yeah, something along the lines of, green schools, it's not just about what you can do within the four walls of a building, but the education that can happen in nature itself, and how students can be a part of learning about the natural environment that way, but also becoming active participants in the stewarding of that environment.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Can you hear me at the click clack of the keys?
No.
I'm typing so fast. Yes,
You are. You're doing an awesome job, Leslie.
Thank you. That was great, Bonnie. I appreciate you.
This is Matt Riggs with the Mid-America Regional Council. I think another way to look at it is that green schools are a great venue or a great vehicle for teaching the whole concept of conservation. It's an ideal setting for teaching the true meaning of conservation, which obviously gets conservative conservation. Those get twisted around in our media world, but the green schools are an ideal, vehicle for bringing that concept to light in all its different aspects.
Love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. What else, folks?
All
This
right.
is really important. We were going to do breakouts, but I'm feeling that we're too short on time to do our adjournment afterwards. So I would love, let's take a couple more minutes. And if you're inspired by what Billy and Bonnie and Matt said, piggyback. If you have just another kind of comment on any of your takeaways from today, like if you had any aha moments, your hopes for impact or perceived roadblocks. I mean, they're all so important because what you want to see achieved, your hopes for impact, that's probably going to end up in there too. It's not just like you're just saying it to saying it. I mean, that's part of kind of twisting this around and saying what we're hoping to see, and not just focusing on what we can address, and how green schools can address them through our pillars, but like what that means on the ground. So to recap, aha moments you've had, your hopes for impact, any perceived roadblocks that you're thinking about. We've had some of those come up. Or if you have any more, wisdom nuggets about conservation and green schools and how they connect.
Yeah, so we're kind of taking a step back now from the deep dive into the resolutions. Just we have 10 minutes left together. Just this experience today, it's captured. What Leslie's just said is captured in the chat. Aha moments you'd like to share, hopes for impact, perceived roadblocks. We'd love to hear a little bit about how this experience has been for you. Thank you, Jamin, for your comments. Yeah, I think it's really a valuable opportunity for us all here today to learn about the CFM resolutions process. And hopefully you are seeing some opportunities that your organizations might be able to plug in and utilize this information, even outside of the Green School scope. No other aha moments?
Okay, make sure you put your name in the chat if you are willing, like your name and just a little asterisk if you haven't already, said, I want to help with X, Y, or Z. If you're just like, okay, yes, you can send me an email directly and we can talk further. Just please do that so we don't miss that. We'll give it about 20 seconds and then we're going to do our final wrap-up slides.
Yeah, and I just want to say thanks to Chris for saying, that this reminded, her how everyone sees things differently. And that's just one additional reason why we feel it is so important to convene the partner network, because sustainability is very broad. Green schools work is very broad. And we really value the perspective that each of you bring. And the feedback that you provide for us so that we can continue to advocate together for greener, healthier schools and communities.
Well said, Hope. Well said.
Hey, Hope and Leslie, can I comment just really, really quickly?
Please, I love it.
On behalf of the Conservation Federation, this has been an excellent and robust conversation that is similar to or even more elevated than a lot of the conversations we have around resolutions at CFM. So I really encourage folks to get involved with the organization and be part of this process, because a lot of potentially very important things happen that will impact education and conservation policy in the state of Missouri, and you all would be awesome. So please join us.
Yes, excellent. Which that is one of our next steps. So where do we go from here after today when we adjourn in 7 minutes? And will there be llamas? We do not have plans immediately on the Show Me Green Schools team to engage llamas in our work. You all certainly can. So please, just so you know, llamas are awesome. So are alpacas. But what we are thinking might be your next steps. We would love for you to be a Green Schools Quest mentor or somebody in your organization or network. So we will be sending information out about that just as soon as we can. And again, yes, I'd like to reiterate what Dana said about becoming an affiliate if it's aligned with your organization's mission or intersectional with it. We've talked a lot today, like where you can see that we all probably fit in, even if it might have to be explained a little bit. The other piece, just thinking about if more of Show Me Green Schools partners were at the assembly this year, defense of our resolutions would be significantly easier, right? We would have people affirming it in the audience for sure. Please share information about Show Me Green Schools and the partner network with people in your organization. If you're on this call, you're one of our main contacts for your organization, and some of you are from really big organizations that might have several mentors to provide, for instance. If you're not already getting the Show Me Green Schools newsletter, scan this QR code. It'll come out, you can do it now or in the email that you receive as a follow-up. And then finally, feel free to set up a one-on-one call with me. We can take 15 minutes or a half hour and really accomplish a lot thinking about how your individual organization might fit in the Show Me Green Schools Partner Network, and make sure that, we know what you're doing, and that we have kind of a strategy for how to get the word out to our schools about what you have to provide, and then other concrete ways that you can plug in. But I just want to say thank you all very much for sharing 2 hours of your life with us during a very busy time of year for a lot of us. So I appreciate you. I welcome any ideas that you have as we move forward. Yeah, just thank you for being here. And I'm really, really excited about this relationship we're developing with CFM, and appreciate everybody's deep thinking and can't wait to kind of digest and process it all.
Thank you all so much. We
All
look
right.
forward to keeping in touch.
Yeah, meeting adjourned. If you want to chit chat, we're here.